And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Flying weather for Thursday morning. We've got marginal VFR here across the Bering Sea and a lot of VFR along the Aleutians here until you get out to Amchitka. Then it's marginal VFR to Shemya. An area of IFR central part of the state here, southwestward to the southwest coast into about Dillingham and on up toward Tooksuk Bay there, a little beyond, and also Kotzebue Sound, northern Seward Peninsula IFR. East side there, some IFR and VFR for the Brooks Range, northern Koyukuk Valley, right on out to the Arctic coast. IFR northern and eastern southeast coast. Marginal VFR into the Gulf of Alaska. And for the afternoon, VFR breaking out here across much of southern Alaska, south of the Alaska Range, kind of lingering here over the Talkeetnas. IFR lingering also up there just east of Eagle, or west of Eagle, that is, and improving here over the southeast coast, becoming maybe VFR, Lincoln Glacier Bay, on up toward White Pass, staying IFR down to the south. VFR, South Central Alaska, Kodiak Island. VFR here for Yukon Delta, Nunivak Island, St. Lawrence Island, and the Bering Strait, as well as much of Kobuk, Koyukuk Valley on out to the Arctic coast. Good conditions tomorrow. Band of IFR with the next front pushing in toward, or pushing into the southwest Bering Sea and pushing in toward Atka Island late in the afternoon. That narrows a little bit for Friday morning as it pushes past Adak and improves back to the west a little bit. Marginal VFR up to the Pribilofs, eastern Aleutians, in toward southern Bristol Bay, the Aleutian Range here in the peninsula. And for the just a narrow band here of IFR, just west of the Kuskokwim Mountains down toward Bethel there, and Seward Peninsula though, VFR, northern Bering Sea. Now some marginal VFR here from the North Slope and areas of the Arctic coast. IFR over the east side, mostly VFR here, south and east of the Alaska Range, right into the Gulf of Alaska. And back to some IFR there for the northern panhandle along the eastern border. And that pretty much holds through the afternoon with IFR flying conditions there for Elfin Cove in toward Haines, Skagway, maybe Juneau on down along the east side there. And marginal VFR, much of the interior here and extending down into the Kuskokwim Valley. But pretty good conditions there on up to actually over toward Nome. And for wherever they are along the Iditarod Trail here, not bad flying-wise. And for the North Slope, marginal VFR into the eastern Arctic coast. And the Bering Sea, mostly marginal VFR, really weakening front here with that narrowing band of IFR line right across the eastern Aleutians. And so going on to the passes for Anatuvik and Atigan. Look for a VFR day tomorrow for both passes there for the Brooks Range. Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR improving to VFR early afternoon through evening. And rainy, occasionally marginal tomorrow, looks occasionally marginal for windy as well. Isabel, marginal VFR. And Mentasta, VFR. Tanita, VFR. And Portage, also VFR. Chilkoot and White, IFR, and improving throughout the day, maybe becoming possibly VFR late. And for the freezing levels, 2,000 feet down to the Queen Charlotte's, but at the surface right here along the Panhandle, just off the North Gulf Coast, east of Kodiak Island, and just north of the Aleutians. Icing, we've got two areas here, two significant areas of considerable moderate rime icing, southern southeast coast, and even a bigger one here pushing in with that strong, intense storm coming in toward the western Aleutians. Now push some icing, increasing icing in toward the Adak-Atka area, at least by afternoon. And for the jet stream here, we've got northwest winds up to 140 knots at 33,000 feet right across the eastern Aleutians. And the stronger winds just south of the western Aleutians there. Light over the northern Bering Sea and much of the interior into the Gulf of Alaska. And then southwest winds about 100 knots blowing in across the southern part of the Panhandle. 9,000 feet, those winds kind of become southeasterly here, right off the southeast coast, 30 to 40 knots there. The stronger winds in across the Queen Charlotte's. Light over the interior, north 25 knots here along the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta coast, Nunivak Island. Increased to 40 knots as they drop down toward the Alaska Peninsula and eastern Aleutians. And high pressure out here over the Bering Sea. Other side of that next storm pushing 40-knot winds in toward the western Aleutians. And at 3,000 feet, even stronger winds. You can see 50 to 70-knot winds out here to the west, just ahead of that low center coming onto the chart there. Other side of this ridge, north winds, 30 to 35 knots down along the west coast into the Alaska Peninsula. And some easterlies at about 40 knots blowing into the Barren Islands here and up along the North Gulf Coast area, and even stronger down over the southern panhandle. And for turbulence, moderate turbulence will be spreading northward in along the southeast coast during the day tomorrow to about Yakutat. Pretty smooth over the interior, maybe a little bit of light to isolated moderate turbulence for the western Arctic coast, especially for smaller aircraft, not too serious there. And occasional moderate turbulence here for the Alaska Peninsula, and a bigger area pushing into the southwest Bering Sea and the western Aleutians.